All right. What's up, everyone? This is Isaac with Hunger Smash Fitness coming to you once again with my phenomenal co-host, John, over at My Block Strongest Man. And today we have a phenomenal athlete, the best deadlifter I've been able to talk to, and probably the best log wrestler I've ever met. So we can go into that more. But today we have Mitchell Hooper. Great guy. Mitch, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. So first of all, I guess mostly what I know of you is that you're going to attempt the 505 deadlift record, or you're working up towards it.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? I've been looking at all your videos. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah, well, it's going good. I mean, my deadlifts are good, and it's funny that I've gained notoriety for that because it's probably not my best event. So yeah, I'm excited to do the deadlift. I'm excited to do the whole Giants Live show. And there's a competition between now and then that I'm not allowed to talk about. That hopefully I get an invite to last minute as well.
Fantastic. So if deadlift is not your best event, I mean, that begs the question: what is your best event?
Probably yoke. Yoke, I back myself on yoke against pretty much anyone in the world. Yeah, it's just that's what was available to me in the past couple of years is the static events, and so that's what's happened to be out there on Instagram. But yeah, I like moving around. I like carrying things. I like running. As a relatively small guy in the world of strongman, it's funny that a static lift is sort of what I've come to be known for.
Yeah, so whenever anybody mentions yoke on this show, Isaac and I have a series of questions. So first of all, what kind of clearance off the ground do you like? Like a high pick so you know you're not going to stumble, or a lower pick, be more streamlined and aerodynamic? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I like to have a lot of clearance under the yoke. I like to move fairly fast, and I never really have an issue picking it up. So the more space I can have to move, the better.
And then how about hand placement? What do you do with your hands?
Well, I put my hand on the back side of the yoke, pushing forward, with the idea that if I can create any sort of momentum of the yoke to be in front of me, I believe that actually stops the yoke going side to side because it has so much inertia back into your hands. So I try and push that yoke as hard as I can with my hands.
Interesting. Isaac, what's our next yoke question?
Well, I don't know which one you're thinking of. I actually had a couple others going off of that, but John, maybe you ask yours first, and then I'll carry from there.
All right. My last one is always breathing. What do you do with breathing?
Don't breathe. Hold on for dear life.
It's a common answer. We often hear if it's short enough, you don't breathe.
You're not getting it back. And I've been lucky to not have to be in a competition where a 20-meter yoke I've had to breathe. Most of the time I can get that done in 10 seconds or less. So yeah, it's not comfortable, but if you breathe out, you're not getting it back. Your brace is gone. And if you lose balance a little bit, you're done.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what is the longest yoke distance that you've had to do so far?
Nothing over 20 meters. And as a strongman, if I don't have to go over 20 meters, I'm not going over 20 meters.
So do you prefer more of like a super yoke, like super heavy short distance, or do you prefer a slightly lighter yoke with a longer distance, or just any yoke?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm fairly inexperienced in the whole world of strongman, and that's why I'm so privileged to be invited to Giants Live and be recognized for the things that I'm doing. So I've been in maybe 6 or 7 competitions, and a lot of that was because of what's happened over the past couple of years. But yeah, I haven't been exposed to a ton in competition, but in terms of gym lifts, I've done 620 kilos for 5 meters, no drops. I've done 1,000 pounds for 15 meters in 7 seconds, and that's kind of my weekly training right now. So whether it's short and heavy or long and light, then it doesn't matter to me.
And Mitchell, where are you located, by the way?
In Barrie at the moment, Barrie, Ontario.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Had quite a few Canadians on the show.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, have you done much frame carry as well? Or do you stick more with yoke, or do you dabble into the frame or farmers and stuff like that?
Yeah, I try. I mean, I do everything. But the vast majority of my strongman career has been in places that don't have strongman equipment. So when I was living in Sydney for the past few years, I was training at a gym that was sort of a shop front, and I had a log. I didn't have farmers that I could use. I didn't have a yoke. I didn't have 90% of the equipment. So, I'm excited and happy to get my hands on whatever. And I'm still in the same situation where I'm making do with what I can, but I really don't have a proper strongman gym at the moment.
Do you think you could give Max a run for his money on the frame carry?
I don't know. You could talk a big game for never picking up a frame before. I have at my first competition, there was a 700-pound frame, and for a frame, that's not really that heavy. But until you get in that giant or the Arnold situation, you're going up a hill. I don't think you know the animal, and I think I'd be out of place to even hazard a guess.
Yeah, because I was going to say it was amazing watching the Arnold and seeing. Some of those guys are decent enough frame carriers and everything else, but the way Max went, when he went first, it was like, all right, nobody's beating that. There's no way.
And I think that I don't have as much reverence in strongman for who lifts the heaviest thing very, very slow. I have the most respect for performances like that, and many performances turned in by Kilo Deadlift. And there's one thing to log press 218, and that was incredible when the boys did that over in Europe this year. But when Kilo Deadlift, I forget the competition, but when he vipered 167 as part of a medley 3 times, to me, I go, Jesus, that's something special.
I can see that, definitely. So,
that was Rogue last year, wasn't it? As part of the yoke log medley.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the first time that he's done it. I'm not sure he vipered all 3 of those. I want to say it was a World Ultimate Strongman or something, probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think Kielskowski's vipered much lately just because of his shoulder and everything. I don't know if it's been up to par, but no, he's definitely an animal in just about every event, it seems like.
Yeah, the guy could, if he got his deadlift up, he'd be hard to beat if he stayed healthy. But that's the ifs, right? That's the ifs of strongman. If this, if that, there'd be more than one world's strongest man if every if came true.
That's very true.
This is true. So I'm wondering, where did the Moose nickname come from?
Well, I was living in Australia. That's where I picked up strongman. Australians don't know that much about Canada. They know that Moose exists here, and I moved fairly well, and that was that. It just stuck, and I use it. That's my team is the Moose Strength team. It's probably not the most original thing now that I'm back in Canada. There's at least 2 of us here now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And, so I'm ignorant with world geography, so I must assume that you know everybody in Australia since you train there. So you must know my friends Carl Sherry and Camilla Fogagnolo.
Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. So Carl's the service rep for Australia, and I was never able to meet them, but I spoke to them, and really nice guy. And he got on to me very early. I'm trying to remember what I'd actually accomplished at that stage, but I don't think I'd accomplished much of anything other than a couple of gym lifts. And he saw me and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on the team." So, it's one of the many things that have brought me along fairly quickly in the world.
He's got a good eye for sure. Good eye for talent.
Yeah, very helpful for guys like me, because in the strongman world, you really have to be propped up by people that you know and people that you come across. And it's one thing to be good, but it's not really enough a lot of the time.
It's true. In this age of social media, it's definitely true. Those that are really putting themselves out there and being proactive are the ones a lot of times that get picked up.
And they should be, to be honest. And people are talking about the world's strongest man and the invites, and this guy should go and that guy shouldn't go. But, the competition's like, it's in all of our best interest for as many people to follow the sport as possible. Mm-hmm. And so let's keep promoting the guys who pull a lot of people into the sport. And, that's what you have to do. And if you want a healthy sport, that's what you have to support, whether it hurts you or helps you.
It's true. I mean, I think they have a really nice representation this year, to be honest.
Probably the best that they've had as long as I've followed it anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, you got mentioning people that bring people into the sport. What are your thoughts on Evan Singleton?
I mean, I think he's an incredible athlete. I don't know the guy at all.
He's a character.
What's that?
I said he's a character. I think he brings fans in. He's definitely a character.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because it's such a small world. So I've spoke to people who know him on a personal level, and they say that he's a great guy. And I just find it so funny. Like, and this comes with any celebrity, really. I find it really funny commenting on who people are before you've even met them. And to think that whoever anyone is on social media is the actual version of themselves is pretty untrue. Like, what's Eddie like? What's Thor like? What are all these guys like? Like, you have no idea. I keep it pretty genuine, but it bodes in a lot of people's favor to become a character that may or may not be themselves. But I don't know. The guy, I think he's got the inside track to do very well at Worlds this year. And I respect him as an athlete because of what I've seen there. And as a human being, I have no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were talking about starting Strongman over in Australia. What are your first memories of Strongman? What first got your attention and sort of drew you in?
So bit of a backstory to that one. In 2018, I moved to Australia from Canada to do my master's in exercise physiology. I had finished running a marathon about 3-4 months earlier. That was my third marathon that I'd done. And I was kind of looking for something new. My knees were quite sore, and I was too big for it. So I knew the training environment that I liked, which was kind of an industrial type gym. And so I ended up finding that a gym called Adonis Athletics, and I lived in the western suburbs of Sydney for the first couple of years, which was fantastic because they had a gym exactly what I was looking for, and those guys happened to be powerlifters. And so I just got into powerlifting because that's what they did. And then there was a group of strongmen who trained every Saturday, and there's a couple of them who egged me on to give a shot at strongman. And in my first comp, I qualified for the amateur Arnold's in Australia. That never ended up happening, but my earliest memories would be those guys. And just the community. You see how they act on Strongman Saturdays all together, and it's pretty hard not to get swept up in it.
It's true. I think, Isaac, you had a similar situation when you first got into Strongman. Am I right?
Yeah, that's kind of because I was lifting at a gym, and I did a couple powerlifting competitions and everything, and then there was one guy in particular at the gym that I was lifting at who was like, "Nah, like you don't love powerlifting. You're not one of the powerlifters. You're not as egotistical and everything as all of them." He's like, "You got to come try Strongman." And so he basically like walked me through signing up for my first Strongman comp, and showed up, and like I'd never touched stones before, never done, there was like an anchor chain drag and stuff. And so I was like, I've never done any of this stuff before, and did really well and absolutely loved it. And everybody there, like when I first showed up, and we were getting ready for the stones and everything. And I went over to one of the guys. I was like, "Hey, I've never done a stone before." And it was a stone to shoulder series. And so, and so I was like, "I've never touched a stone before." And like instantly there were like 4 or 5 guys who were like, "Oh, hey, like, come on over here. We'll help show you how to put the tacky on and how to how to grab the stone." And like, so kind of same thing, just like instantly just like fell in love with it. And that's all I've been wanting to do ever since.
Yeah. I mean, what a rough go. Hey, stone to shoulder series is the first one you jumped.
Yeah,
I
know. It was, which I mean, thankfully for me, like as a novice heavyweight, I think the heaviest stone that we had to do was like 235 or something like that. But it was 4 stones, and then the last one was just for reps. and I ended up winning that event. But it was one of those things, like, having never touched it before, I was like, all right, this kind of sucks, but it's really fun at the same time. So yeah.
It's, one of the things that's so good about strongman is, like, 95% of people want to beat the other guy when he performs at his best. There's no pride in beating a guy who ripped a callus open or something like that. And you wouldn't see in the NBA someone hoping that a guy makes a shot so that you can make a shot. No.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that, like, stood out to me, because a little bit ago, I've told John this story too, but a little bit ago, I was a spotter loader at a competition, and one of the lightweight competitors was doing his deadlift and his straps broke. And so he was ready to just, like, walk off. He's like, well, those are my only straps. Like, and so he was going to walk off the platform, and right away there were like 4 or 5 guys that came running out of the crowd, and they're like, here, like, use my straps real quick. Like, keep going. You still got like 20 seconds. Like, and so it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, like, everybody's rooting for everybody, even though you want to win. Like you said, you want to beat them when, not because of some handicap or something like that. Like, not because something happened and you just won by fluke or something like that. Like, you actually want them to do well, and you don't want them to get hurt or anything like that.
Yeah. And, I think it gets to a pretty important conversation about who makes up the strongman community and where do a lot of these people come from. And there's a lot of us, myself included, who, came from athletic backgrounds, and we're used to, like, oh, that guy goes to different gyms, so we hope that he rips callus open, we hope that he tears a hamstring, whatever. But it just doesn't exist at all. And I think we have to recognize that the vast majority of people who get into strongman are, mental health problems are rampant in the community when you get to talking to people. And it's just a lot of people who have a hard time finding a regular exercise routine, who struggle with a way to better themselves. And it's really their primary way of interacting with other people. And to see such a positive community is, it's something that should really be protected. And it's something that I'll get quite excited about when I see people who are against the community aspect of the sport. And, there's always the 5% of people who you don't understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, the positivity that you see in strongman is something I don't see anywhere else. It's really at another level in terms of what percentage of people are nice human beings.
Yeah. And you asked the question about Evan Singleton, and to bring it back to him, from what I've seen, he's extremely gregarious and huge character. But I've also seen him say a lot of respectful things about the other competitors. If I ever saw anything different, I'd change my opinion very quickly. Even the guys who, they're you want to call them the biggest characters of the sport, you'd rarely see them talk about other people in general. They might have an issue with one person, but it's really from bottom to top, most of what I've seen is really positive. And if it wasn't, I probably wouldn't have stuck around very long at all.
And it's really just those two guys who have an issue with each other, or did, really nobody else.
Well, I know even because even Robert Oberst has a bit of a reputation for just being kind of the same thing, a loud mouth and getting under people's skin and everything. But I got to meet him a while back, and he's the nicest guy ever. And he was, taking pictures with people and just, chit-chatting with everybody. Anybody could come up and talk to him, and just nicest guy ever, and had time to chat with anybody. Like, didn't push anybody away or hurry anyone up or anything like that. And so I think it's just one of those things where I think a lot of those guys, like you said, kind of put on a persona for Instagram and for TV or whatever. But in real life, I haven't run into that much at all.
Yeah. And, I'm all for tactics. Like, I think there's an element to talking to a guy who, you don't try and ruin his day or injure him. But I was doing a yoke at one event, and it was a 2-man race basically between me and this one other guy. And I told him, I go, so he was supposed to be on the opposite end. We were supposed to cross each other, and we were the only 2 heavyweight men who were racing each other. Everyone else was matched against the lightweights. So he was at the other end, and I say to the promoter, I go, no, bring it over here. Let's race together. Like, I want to go side by side. And so they bring the yoke down. And while they're bringing the yoke down, I say to them, go, I'm going to be fast. So I hope you're fast too, because let's make this interesting at least. And then they bring the yoke down. He needed the yoke at a different height. So, he's pacing back and forth, and I go, no, don't worry. And I adjust the yoke for him. Like he takes one step and stumbles a bit and drops the yoke. All right. That's that. But it's a vast difference playing tactics versus wishing the worst upon someone.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I think they did that at Middle East Strongest Man. It was like going toward each other yokes for distance. Can't imagine doing that, like having to make sure you don't crash into the other guy while holding the yoke up.
Yeah. On top of the fact that you would kind of be eyeing up how quick they're going, and it'd throw you off a little bit for sure.
Yeah. But now you got me thinking about if strongman were set up like the NBA, because you mentioned the NBA earlier. Imagine bag over bar, like the guys go, the strongman or strongwoman's going to toss the bag over bar, and then the competitor comes and like blocks it.
That'd be good. The head-to-head events are really cool. Like I love in Worlds getting into the finals through the ping pong with the AppStone. I think that's fantastic. But one of the things that Worlds used to do, and some strongman competitions used to do, that grinds my gears a bit, is like when they did the wrestling, and they would do like more physical, aggressive events against each other. Because one of the things that I hate the most about how we're perceived is that somehow showing controlled strength is correlative to aggression, and correlative to you could beat someone up, or I've never been in a fight in my life. I never plan to be. And you look at Eddie and Thor, and the only thing that bothers me about that boxing match is a lot of people would see that and go like, oh, okay, strong man fighting, like that makes sense. When in reality, it makes no sense at all.
That's why it took them 2 years to train for it, because it's not a natural progression.
Yeah, and half the time we're this big, so we don't have to fight people.
There you go.
Although I'm not gonna lie, the sumo wrestling that World's Strongest Man puts on, or hasn't put on in a while now, but that is fun to watch, just because most of those guys have no clue what they're doing, and they're just out there pushing on each other. And you're like, and it's just, it's entertaining for that aspect, I guess.
And running away from Kaz.
Yeah, running away from Kaz. That's a big part of it as well.
I'd have done the same, to be honest. That guy's eyes. Something else.
So I wanted to find a video here that you shared. Let me get the screen going up.
Yeah, if it isn't the one I'm thinking of, I have a comment about a different video.
I was thinking of this one here. So how long were you training before you got the 475? Because that, it was a struggle, but that looked pretty good, honestly.
This is awesome. So this is what I have so much confidence going into Giants Live, and it's not because I don't have respect for how far away 505 is from 475, but to paint the picture of this, all the gyms were closed for about 3-4 months before this. So I didn't have access to, thankfully through work, I work in a clinic, and I was able to bring some stuff over and make it work. But I didn't have access to calibrated plates. I didn't have access to a deadlift bar. I had coworkers putting on my deadlift suit who were, girls who had never seen a deadlift suit before in their lives. I had briefs on that were 2-3 sizes too big. And I had Static Monsters 2 weeks before this. In the lead up to Static Monsters, 6 days before, Julian Howard, the world's strongest fan, he sent me a message. It was like, I think you'd get into Worlds if your squat was better. And it was just because he hadn't seen my squat. So, okay, that's fine. So 6 days out from Static Monsters, I was with a friend of mine, and I don't have much experience wrapping my knees, but I'm going to wrap my knees, and we're going to go 700 pounds and see how many times we can go. So I get through a couple, and naturally, since I'm not used to wrapping my knees, I lose my balance a bit. I take a step back with my right foot, and my left hamstring takes the load. So I tore my left hamstring 6 days out from Static Monsters. And, you know, it was grade 1 tear. It was sore during Static Monsters. And I made do. And so I log pressed 200, took it back, took 185, and deadlifted 485. And that's what I was training for. I wasn't training for a max deadlift from the floor. The reason that came up is because I just had a guy come up to me and or contact me, and I had never met him before, but he said, you know, I want a sports bet, and I want to put on a charity event. And I thought that, you know, you'd be a great feature for the charity event to break your Australian deadlift record. And at that time it was 435 kilos. So I said, yeah, you know what, it was for like a Make-A-Wish type of equivalent. So yeah, sure, let's do it. And so my hamstring pulled up well from Static Monsters. I still hadn't touched the deadlift bar in the lead up to this comp. And training's going okay. You know, 2 weeks between comps is very odd, but my goal was 1,000 pounds. So I'd failed 1,000 pounds about 6 months earlier when I deadlifted 435. And I thought that would be really cool. 453 deadlift, fantastic. And the only issue is the night before that deadlift. And again, this is not, I wasn't, it was a charity thing. It wasn't a huge focus for me. The night before that deadlift was my work party, and we were all really close with each other. And so we were out on a boat at Sydney Harbour, and you know, we took off at around 6. And I said to my partner, I go, okay, my fiance, I said, okay, I'll drink until about 7 p.m. and then no more, so that I'm ready for tomorrow. I said, I'm just going to get it done early. I'm going to sleep it off. I'll be in good shape. And I still get harassment from one of my friends when at 11 p.m. I have a tray of tequila shots coming around for everyone. So, you know, I went to bed that night and I thought, okay, 1,000 pounds would be fantastic. I get to the venue and there's no deadlift bar to warm up on. So, okay, that's fine. And so I'm deadlifting on a Olympic lifting bar. And it doesn't really make a difference to me. And my biggest motivation there for the day was one of my clients had brought his kid, a 4-year-old kid. And it's one of my favorite pictures, one of the ones I sent to you guys when I'm chalking my hands up. So I thought, you know, my attempts are going to be 400, 440, 455, so that my second attempt would break the record if anything went wrong. Okay. And so I deadlift 400, it was fine. Deadlift 430, 440, that was fine. I did 1,000 pounds and, you know, it felt okay. And so I was supposed to be done for the day. And I said to the promoter, I think I got more. And so all the lifts were done. So I said, dude, just give me 5 minutes and I'll give it another crack. And I said, you know, Makarov won the deadlift championship at 475. Let's go 475. Puts 475 on the bar. And I had very little expectation that it would leave the floor. I thought if it left the floor, that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, then it ended up locking it out. And you know, I threw my back out a bit 3/4 of the way up, so that kind of impacted the speed past my knee. But yeah, I mean, I really blew myself away from that one. And in a 6-month span, I went from 435 to 475. Now I have 12 months to get to 505, and I won't be hungover, and I'll have briefs that fit. And I'll be able to warm up and train on the deadlift bar. So there's a lot that in my favor, but I take a lot of pride, and I think it's a pretty strong in strongman spirit. To just, you know, you make do with whatever you got. I've got some great videos of Static Monsters before I set the world record from 18 inches for 12 hours before Gabriel Pena got the record back off me. And I have some great videos when I put on my deadlift suit, and I didn't have proper boxes to deadlift from, and so I was using just wood boxes, and I had 485 on the wood boxes, and maybe 470 the week before, and I had broke one of them. So okay, right. So I had stacked up a bunch of like the old school metal plates, and I had 4 or 5 45-pound plates. I had a couple of 25-pound plates, and on top I had one 5-pound plate. And so I had to balance the weight on the 5-pound plate and kind of gently wiggle myself into the deadlift. Meanwhile, my fiance helps put my deadlift suit on, and she's with one of our mutual friends. And I'm 10 seconds away from pulling an unofficial world record. And she goes, okay, I think we're going to head out now. I'll catch you at home, okay? Excuse me, do you know what I'm about to do? She, oh, okay, sorry. So yeah, I mean, I really like adverse conditions, but obviously when you have the whole slew of them thrown at you, I figured on the day I could have done a lot more in the proper conditions. And you know, there's about 20 people in the room, so you can get excited with 20, but I can imagine with 10,000, it's going to be a different story.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, an accomplishment like that to the layman looks incredible. You were the topic of conversation at Easter yesterday for my family. So I had my phone out. I said, this guy is going to be my guest tomorrow night. And my uncle's looking at it and it said 475. He's like, that's 1,000 pounds, isn't it? And I did the math. I said, it's 1,045. Yeah. And he's like, oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, quite a lot of impressed people around the Easter table yesterday.
Yeah, that's cool. And you know, I get a lot of that stuff, and I train out of a commercial gym now, and I get a lot of attention there. But you know, in the end, I'll never lose the perspective of there's a few percent of people who care about that. And if you showed him the same video and had the same excitement and said, I have this guy who deadlifted 350 on my podcast tomorrow, and showed him the video, he'd be just as blown away, and they have no idea. I think what's most important is just trying to make a positive impact on all those people, and whatever platform I gain to try to be one of those people who are, you know, a good voice out there.
For sure, for sure. I mean, so what's your advice to me? I want to call Tyler Cotton because he lives close to here, and I want to have him come lift stones in the woods with me, but I don't want to hurt him for the World Tour Finals at the end of the year. I don't want him to trip in the woods or something.
Gonna do some stone lifting and trail running with him before Giants.
Yeah. Well, he's doing the World Tour Finals, which is, as far as I heard anyway, which is later. So I'll get him over here now so he can heal up if he trips.
There you go. So what I guess, Mitch, I wanted to ask you this as well. What's your least favorite event, strongman related?
Well, to me, it's pretty much directly correlated with how much technique it takes, because I've been exposed to such a little strongman in the grand scheme of things that the more technique, the more inexperience, the harder it is on me. So something like the monster dumbbell, I don't love that because I haven't been exposed to it. So I've got a couple sitting in my, I'll try and show you. I've got a couple sitting in my office just to try and get a little bit more exposure. But yeah, I'd say that one's my least favorite. The most I've ever done on it is 115 kilos. Yeah, that's not up to scratch for everything else that I can do. So that would kind of be the one event that if it popped up, I welcome it, but it would be a concern.
Yeah, and so I had mentioned earlier, Isaac, I was wondering about another post you had, Mitchell, about, I think it was a strict press. And of course, you have the commenter saying, oh, he's leaning way too far back. And there was something similar with Bobby Thompson on TikTok recently. So I just want to get your perspective on, you know, what do you think of comments like that? Like, do they have any merit, or do they just not have all the facts?
Well, most of the comments on social media, I mean, I think powerlifting prevails on TikTok, for example, so they don't really understand what's going on. I think there's some fundamental misunderstandings of injuries and what causes injuries as well. And there's fundamental misunderstandings of we're not training not to get injured, because that would look very different. And so, you know, it's kind of the beauty of strongman, where there's no clarity to a lot of things. And you go, what's the yoke world record? And you go, I don't know, how far, how heavy, and what time, and you know, and what's this world record? And you go, I don't know, what are the conditions? And that's kind of the beauty of the ambiguity and the attitude of you got to get out there and do whatever the event is, and it is what it is. So, you know, strict press is a relative term, I suppose, but to me, it's don't use your legs, and to most strongmen, I mean, don't use your legs, but if to someone else it's your body stays upright, then it doesn't really bother me. That's okay.
That's interesting, because I just finished my bachelor's in exercise science, and then I'm starting a doctorate program in physical therapy and all that. But one of my internships I did was at a college athletic gym working with the sports teams and everything.
Yes.
And it was really interesting because with everything, how they would teach overhead, spine is perfectly straight, perfectly upright. You don't want to lean back at all, blah, blah. So they have all these strict parameters. And I was like, well, that's very different from how I do overhead, because usually when you're doing it with a log, if you're perfectly upright, the log's way out here and it's going to pull you forward. So you lean back a bit to compensate, to create, to compensate for those imbalances and that weight disparity, basically. And so I got into a couple pretty long discussions with some of the coaches and everything there. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we're really going to see eye to eye on this, just because how I do it has a completely different purpose than just teaching linemen, basics of a power clean or something like that.
Yeah. Well, to give you the background, my educational background, I did my bachelor's degree in human kinetics in Canada. I worked as a head strength and conditioning coach for a pro basketball team here. It wasn't really getting enough from that. And went to Australia for my master's degree in exercise physiology, which over there is managing injuries and chronic disease with exercise. So I'd like to think I have a good enough understanding of the human body. I'm opening a clinic just down the road here to treat people with injuries and chronic conditions. And yeah, it's even in the profession, it's really too bad. A lot of people have a huge misunderstanding of, again, what causes injuries. And if you've been doing something and you've been progressively overloading it and allowed your soft tissues time to adapt, your risk of injury is fairly low. Yes, if you tried to do this, you'd crumble, but that's not me. And again, yes, there's a risk of injury, but that's kind of the game that you're playing. There's steps you can take to prevent it. But yeah, the spine can bend forward, it can bend backward, it can bend to the side. You look at a baseball pitcher's elbow and what that thing goes through, and they get surgeries all the time, but the fact that it can last 10 years of whipping like that because they're just used to it. I think we need to promote more about how adaptable the body is. And if Strongman is not a perfect example of that, then I don't know what is.
I don't know if you've ever met him, but you'd have a good conversation with Dr. Andrew Mock. He's a middleweight strongman in the U.S. here, and had a lot of similar things to say when we had him on.
Yeah, and I don't like to talk high performance and elite level as much as I like to talk how does this impact the general person. And if we put so many constraints on how you're supposed to do this and how you're supposed to do that, when it's really untrue to begin with, well, the unsafest thing you could do is not move over the long term. And if we're and there's so much cloudiness out there that someone goes, oh, I don't know if I should shoulder press. And there's physiotherapists who'll say, don't shoulder press when you're over 50 years old or something. You go, well, I hope that they can reach their cereal in the morning. So one time I had a conversation with a physiotherapist, because we'll get in, respectful disagreements sometimes. You go, so you don't want this person to reach over their head? No. So I say to this physio, I go, okay, that's okay. For what period of time? And they go, at the moment, indefinitely. I go, okay, well, what's the treatment plan to return them back to reaching overhead? And they say, well, what do you mean? I go, well, at some stage, they need to do that. So, we have such an issue in society with people not moving. And I think, the best example is overhead pressing. And there's so much about overhead pressing. Eliminate the spine from the conversation. And you can talk about the shoulder, you can talk about the rotator cuff. And a lot of people who aren't in the field, who are in the field and don't have experience themselves, will go like, your shoulders need to be down and back when you're overhead pressing. But if you look at the people who have the most experience overhead pressing in Olympic lifters and gymnasts, their shoulders are up at their ears because your traps provide a lot of stability, and it's very safe to do that. And so even they're not promoting the right things. So I feel bad for someone who hasn't dedicated their life to exercise, because there's so much nonsense out there. And what prevails is just move and do things, and don't do too much too soon.
Yeah, the other example I was bringing up with Bobby Thompson on TikTok was he had a post where he had like a throwback deadlift, and it was 1,025 pounds, and he was showing a mistake he made. He said, I got the lift, but if you notice, I forgot to put on my belt, so I fractured a rib or something like that. So someone in the comments said, oh, you fractured your rib because you don't brace properly. And I'm thinking, like, this guy doesn't know who Bobby Thompson is. Like,
So I had one of those, and it was a rack pull, and it was something like 900 pounds for sets of 10 or something from 18 inches. And someone in the comments says, it's safer if you use your glutes more. And then someone responds to them, and this person was pretty good about it. Someone responds to them and goes, I don't think you know who this guy is. And then he obviously went to my profile and he goes, fair point, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I did that. I did that for Bobby as well. I was like, because he was, respectfully responding to some of them, and I said, Bobby, you're being really patient, but these people clearly don't know who you are, your accomplishments, or your knowledge for that matter.
Yeah. Which is, it's okay, and I'm whoever takes the time to comment, I'm genuinely appreciative, because even if it's something really negative, you get more comments and it boosts the algorithm, and the algorithm gets you more followers, and then with those followers you can choose to promote whatever message you want.
It's true. That's a good point.
So you'll see, I'll respond if I have time. I'll respond to virtually everyone on virtually anything for that exact reason.
I did notice that you respond more than a lot of people do, so kudos to you.
I'm also nobody.
I wouldn't say that. Hey, listen, I might be nobody, but Big Loz has mentioned you, so that makes you somebody.
makes me someone to him. I'm famous in my own household, but I refuse to believe it's much more than that.
So, what else? So I know you're training for Giants. Do you have any other shows after that you're looking at, or?
Canada's Strongest Man is about 2 weeks after that, and then I'll have a pretty good off season, because at the moment I'm prepping for World's Strongest Man. I'm not prepping for Giants. So again, I can't really say anything about that. I don't know why. Apparently I can't. So yeah, I'm training for that one. Hopefully I get into that one. And then Giants Live is about 8 weeks after that. Really unfortunate I can't do Static Monsters, which is 2 weeks before Giants Live, but it just doesn't make sense. And then 2 weeks after Giants Live is Canada's. And I'm really fortunate to be at the point in my career, and I only took this up in 2020 to be at the point in my career when I can go, these are the few large national, international shows that I'm choosing to do. Hopefully I perform well enough at those that continues.
Have you competed at Canada's before?
No, I was in Australia until about 4 months ago. So my whole strongman career has been in Australia, and there was no Australia's Strongest Man for the whole time I was there.
Okay, because I was gonna say I don't remember seeing your name on the list last year when it happened.
And ironically, I think there was an Australia's Strongest this year, wasn't there?
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And it's I've kind of been a victim of my own decision, but in my life, there's things that are more important than strongman. So you follow those and accept the consequences. But Australia's Strongest Man, that was incredible. Just a quick note on that. The guy who won it, I coached him for about 2 weeks leading into it. And about 4 days before, he wasn't invited. About 4 days before, he messages me and says, hey, I've got a dream job out in the oil rig. And I believe it was an oil rig, something to that effect. And, I'm giving up strongman. I'm done with it. And, this has been my dream, going to this job. Okay, right, fair enough. Great work and proud of you, and stay in touch. And then the next day, one of his good buddies gets COVID, gets an illness, and he goes and isn't able to compete anymore. And he just says, well, can Jordan go? And the promoters, I suppose, said yes. This guy goes and wins the competition. Right. So I messaged him afterwards. And this is my favorite thing. I messaged him afterwards. He goes, so you still giving up strongman? He goes, yeah, I couldn't think of a better set off. And, there's 3 or 4 guys who couldn't turn up. I probably wouldn't have won it anyway. So, unfortunately I couldn't be there, but, happy for the guys who won.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, I guess JF won't be as involved in running Canada's Strongest like he has been in the past, given his injury, unfortunately.
Well, to my knowledge, he will be. So he messaged, he messaged a group of guys and said, "Oh, you're invited to X and X competitions, and this is the pathway to Canada's strongest man." So I think JF's still a face of what they refer to as professional strongman in Canada, but I really don't understand much of the system to date. I know that I think it's pretty cool that Max seems to run the amateur side and JF seems to run the pro side. And if I was writing a story, that's exactly how I would write it.
Absolutely. He's also, JF is like the model for positivity. I mean, after what he went through with that injury, the guy just doesn't stop smiling. It's wonderful to see that sort of message, and also to hear now that he's still involved in Canada's Strongest Man. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, I've got several messages from JF, and I think that he's obviously very accomplished and really paved the way for Canadian strongmen. And I'm pretty humbled for him even to be messaging me. But super nice guy from all the interactions that I've had with him, and obviously huge passion for strongman.
Yeah, we've had him on a few times. Great stories too. He talked about growing up on a farm and lifting 4-wheelers when he was growing up. So he's always got great stories.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting him and Max as well. And like really all the guys in Canada. There's a lot of apprehension moving over from Australia. And like I said, if the community wasn't the same here that it was in Australia, I'd follow the sport pretty quickly. But even in a place with no strongman, I have been contacted by people in Niagara and Thunder Bay in Quebec and all over the shop of like, hey, it'd be great to get together for a session, blah, blah. So it seems to be pretty consistent internationally, which is really fueled more passion for the sport for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember first time I had Max and Sam on the show, they got a delivery of 2 800-pound tires in the middle of the show. So Max had to run and accept them while I kept talking to Sam. It was really funny.
Yeah, right. Funny one with Max. I'm sure he's okay with me telling this one. So I've never met him. Again, seems like a really nice guy. So I come over from Australia, and I'd been invited to Giants Live at this point. That hadn't been announced, and it's well far away. So I come over and I go, I don't know many Canadian strongmen, but I know Max, I know JF. So I knew Max was coming to do a seminar about an hour away from my hometown, and he would, where I live now, and he would have to drive straight through. So I message him and I go, hey, it'd be great to get together for a session. You're going to be driving through and whatever. So, or I might have just said get together when you come through. And so he had sent me a very brief message back. And then I get a message about half an hour later from the place that he was driving to, the gym, saying, hey, Max told me that you wanted to come to his seminar, and started giving me the details. I'm like, oh, right, okay. I'm like, nobody here. And then about a month later, 6 weeks later, I suppose Max had caught wind of me at some stage, and then he messaged me and goes, hey, it'd be great to have you up to Thunder Bay sometime and come train. I'm like, okay, full circle.
Yeah, they're both great people, he and Sam.
Sure. Yeah, they seem to be.
Yeah.
Well, if you give a seminar, at least you could invite Max then to attend your seminar. Maybe you'll learn a thing or two, Max.
But we could probably give each other seminars. I'm not sure he could learn much from me, but he's been around a long time.
And he's very knowledgeable, and he's trained. I mean, he's trained with JF a lot and other stuff, and so I feel like he's very knowledgeable as well. I was going to say one of the things I really like about JF as well, when I had him on once before, we started talking about old time strongman, like the history of strongman. And if you ever want to find a true historian of the sport, talk to JF, because he knows way more history about every single event and the famous strongmen who excelled in different things. Like, I was like, oh man, we could go on for hours and just let him recite facts about strongman lists and stuff. So
yeah, right.
If you ever want a history lesson, hit him up.
I'm embarrassed to be the opposite. I wish I knew more, but I have the same story as the vast majority of strongman fans, who are like, Yeah, I saw it on the sports channel a bit when I was growing up, and my only difference is that I stumbled upon a gym who did it instead of stumbled upon a competition I wanted to watch.
So you didn't watch enough growing up to have a favorite?
No, I'll be honest with you. Until I got into it, I couldn't have told you one person's name, which is too bad. And, a lot of people, when you talk to them about strongman, it's in Canada, anywhere where I'm from, and most of them say, oh, that was on TSN 10 years ago. You're like, yeah, it was. It was. So, I think my honest opinion is that, Big Z, not speaking English very well and not being much of a character. And same with Brian Shaw. I mean, he seems like the nicest guy, but he's not really something that people would, you don't tune in to see what Brian Shaw has to say because he's just like really nice, and that doesn't really work. So that's where someone like Evan Singleton could come in. And I think at the top, if there was an English speaking person who was a character who was well spoken, I think that would do a lot for the sport in North America. Just like, I don't know what strongman culture was like in the UK before Eddie Hall came about. And I'm sure it was quite strong, but I'm sure 40% of my followers wouldn't be from the UK if it wasn't from Eddie Hall.
Yeah, and then moving into this generation now, over there we have Paulo Dwyer and his character.
Yeah, exactly. So, then I look at what I want to accomplish in the sport long term, and I don't list titles on that. Like, it'd be cool to win this and set this record, but to me, it's if you're someone like let's carry through Eddie Hall's legacy and say, okay, that means that strongman grew a lot in England. Okay, well, what does that mean? And it means one of the most positive groups of people you could ever be around are participating in regular exercise. Like, well, if I could have that type of impact, that's exactly what I want to do. And so whilst you look at the two worlds that I'm involved in and go, one is chronic disease and injury, and one is, we'll call it high performance sport. And I draw such a strong connection between the two of them. And it was really serendipity that I fell into it. And it just, it's to me, it's awesome. Like I'll go to the clinic, I'll train someone, I'll go to the gym, train myself. I'll come home and train my clients, like my online clients, and I don't get bored of it, like, because it's just so ingrained with who I want to be.
How did you start coaching? I think that would be an interesting story. Like a lot of strongmen, strongwomen have clients. How do you go about deciding to do that and obtaining clients? I'd like to learn the business of it.
Well, I'll go back to how I started. So at first, I had a few people ask me, and as someone who's relatively new to the sport, I'll be very honest with people and say that's not really my area of expertise. But what is that I have a strong knowledge in physics and biomechanics and injury management, injury risk, and that accounts for a lot more than the strongman events themselves. And if you understand the physics of, say, a log press, you understand that your hand position in the clean has a dramatic impact on how well you can clean that log, but it also has a dramatic impact on where your hands are when you're going to press the log. And the log position in the lap has an obvious effect when it's in your shoulders. And then the position of the handles on your shoulders impacts the center of mass of the log. And so that stuff I didn't learn from a strongman, and I'm sure they would describe it that way. But if you understand physics, it's not, I don't find the sport to be, I don't find it to be rocket science most of the time. And that's why the monster dumbbell is the one thing that you go, there's a lot of detail to that. And I'm not, but I already knew squat, bench, deadlift. I knew that from personal experience, from education. You get a good foundation, you got a good knowledge base there. So I had a few people asking me to coach them at first. I thought, okay, well, yeah, I'll take them on. And I was a uni student and thought I'd see how it goes. And then, it just kind of builds up a bit. I gained a bit of confidence with it. And then most of it was done through Instagram. So I thought you have to create a brand with it. And so I started the Moose Strength team, and I needed the same values in that as I thought were important in the sport. And so I have ways that me and my team get together once a week. And so promoting the community aspect and marketing the team aspect to to me has been really important. So for example, on Friday night we've got poker night, and I put my own money up for us all to play poker, and we all pop on Zoom, and there's people from 4 or 5 different countries that all come on. And so yeah, that's largely how it's come about. And most people will reach out to me and say, I want to coach. And I go, okay, well, why me? And they say, oh, well, you've done this, and you're invited to this, and you're this, you're this, you're this. And I always pop on Zoom to them, and I say, well, like, what's my education? Do you know anything about me? And they're like, no, you're just strong. Like, okay, that accounts for nothing. I'll still take care of you, but here's the details. So yeah, and then just putting posts out every once in a while. It's important just to let people know what your purpose is. And Static Monsters, for example, I log pressed 200 kilos, and it was counted as clean on the day. And then there's a video from the side where I had it locked out, but it was momentum coming forward when they called the down call. And so I said, you know what, I had the world record, and that holds some integrity. So I took it upon myself to say, no, that's not on. And so I'll take my lift before. And I got a couple of clients from that because people just saw that you're a genuine good person. So yeah, and then, virtually every single person who follows me, I'll message them and say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? And, just having honest intentions and trying to help as many people as possible. And I think in terms of sales and marketing, the days of holding back your best stuff for when they buy your product are long gone. I'll give everything I have to someone. They send me a video, I'll do my best to review it as well as I can. And I'll ask if they're interested in more help. So yeah, there's no snake oil with it. And I think in the strongman world, a lot of people they don't come from a white collar background. So I don't think a lot of people understand a customer service element to things. And what's been most valuable for me is more my referrals from my client and my client retention that I've been very, very fortunate to be able to make that a full-time job in essence. And I've lost less than 5% of people over the course of 6 months, like a 6-month time frame, because like you just message people back. You always have their programs ready. You give them their reviews when you say they're going to get their reviews, and you meet with them. You learn about their family. You learn about what makes them tick, and you listen to them. So there's very few of my clients, and there's about 40 of them at this stage. There's very few on my team who I wouldn't know their life situation, their partner, their job, all that type of stuff. And I think that's really important. And how good you're at marketing and sales, I think, just speeds up or slows down how fast you grow a business. But the size of the business, I believe, is dictated by what level of value you can provide to someone. And then, I started up the website. I had one of my clients from very early on, named Katie from Australia. She's a mom. She works full time, and she said, you got to get this out there. And she's like, after my fiance, she's probably my number 2 supporter. And she's like, let's make you a website and let's get this out there. Let's get this out there. And you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. Like with your knowledge base and your skill, and you're this, and you're this, you're going to do it. And so she probably has twice the energy for it that I do. So I've brought her on, and she works for me now on the team. And just having people like that is just so valuable. And so I started my website, and I have the online programs. I'm just trying to build the biggest community that I can for people who might not have a strongman gym around them. We try and pull them into the sport and go, here's a team for you to be a part of. Here's a group of people for you to be a part of. And the funny thing is, I interview everyone. Well, I do an intake call to see if they're the right fit, is what I always say. Mm-hmm. And people are always really self-conscious, and they go, oh, I've never done a comp before, and my deadlift's this, and I'm not sure that I'm up to the scratch of the team. And the only thing that makes you up to the scratch or not is if you're a jerk. And if you're a jerk, you're not up to scratch, no matter how strong you are, and vice versa. So there's nobody on my team that I wouldn't back to go have dinner with my family, for example. And when you create that group of people, it really just snowballs onto itself.
Yeah. Are you training people exclusively for comps, or what if it's just somebody trying to get better?
Yeah, if it's someone trying to get better, this is where I have to separate my my business in Barrie in Ontario for my business online. I stick to strength sports online, but I have many people who have no intention of competing. I have people who have won national championships, been to IPF Worlds. It's not important to me. The intention is important to me, and one of the most important questions I ask is like, why is this important to you? And the people who can't answer that question are people that, you know, I don't have a lot of time for, because if it's, you know, to be the strongest guy in the room and they don't want to admit that, I don't want to deal with you, because that's not what it's about.
Very interesting. So another thing I had in mind to ask you is, what do you think is the biggest misconception about strongman?
The sport or the individuals?
Good distinction. Let's go with the sport.
I think the biggest misconception has been promoted by strongmen themselves, and it's that strongman's a full-time job. You have to eat 10,000 calories. You have to eat 10 times a day. You spend $1,000 a week on groceries, and you train for 6 hours a day. And it's just, it's not the case. And I had imposter syndrome for a little bit when I thought, you know, I have a full-time like white-collar job, and I spend a little bit more than normal on groceries. You know, I eat 6,000 calories, not 12,000. And I train 3 hours a day. I don't know. Am I one of them or am I not? And you come to learn that a 6-hour workout is because like, you're chatting to people for 4 and you're just hanging out, and you have a barbecue halfway in between. And then you come to learn as well, like some guys choose to be 400 pounds and that's how they need to be strongest, but it's becoming less and less necessary. So something I respect hugely about Big Z, from the little I know about him, is that he's accomplished so much in his life outside of strongman. And he's quoted as saying, like, I'm a strongman for a few hours a day. And I relate to that, you know, very strongly. Yeah, my family and my career, treating people with injuries and chronic disease, those two things come before strongman. And I spend more time on those things when all goes well than I do on strongman. So I think, yeah, biggest misconception is the appearance that it's all consuming.
That's a really good distinction. Donna Moore said something similar when I interviewed her, because at the time, I think she changed jobs, but at the time she was working for the national healthcare system, and she was, you know, taking care of people in need. And, you know, you think this is maybe the strongest woman who's ever lived, but like, wow, what a great human being. You know, it's really, really enlightening. The other misconception, I think, is that it's all about strength, and people don't realize the technique involved in some of these things. So stone lifting, for example. So Isaac knows I love going in the woods and lifting stones. And so, you know, I'm working my way up, and I get this one that I think is 210. I'm going to use a hanging crane system to weigh it again, but we'll see. I think it's 210. And I couldn't quite clear my knees to lap it. So I go watch Hannah Lindsay, and granted, I'm doing natural stones. This was Atlas stones, but I saw, oh, like you don't necessarily have to clear your knees. You just have to squat way down so you can roll it back and kind of counterweight your body with the stone. So I tried that and I got it. And it was so, you know, so proud that then I got it. Getting it from lap to chest is easy then, because now you have access to all the muscles in your body to stand up. And I was like, damn, you know, like I finally did one technique like the pros do. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's I think of it, I think in a fairly intellectual way. I'm thinking about the physics of it and the science of it, but the amount of internal thoughts that have to go on, whether you know what you're doing or not, to do something well is pretty incredible. Even for what I would consider the most rudimentary lift that everyone should be doing, the deadlift, like just picking something up off the ground. Barrier to entry is being older than 3 years old. And, you know, I could tell you probably 20 different points that you have to tick to be able to do an efficient deadlift at a heavy weight. And, you know, there's something that appears like nothing internally is tons and tons that you have to just practice and practice.
Yeah, people who haven't tried it don't realize it.
Yeah. And then, you know, to circle around to the misconception about the individuals, I think it's what I talked about before. And it's that somehow being large and strong is associated with being violent and being aggressive. And, you know, I actually, honestly, hand to heart, don't understand where that's come from. Because I have some tattoos, and I understand that was a prison thing. And so some people could still make that association. I get it. But where did just being large, where did that come into play for people who are aggressive? So yeah, that grinds me about the impression of strongmen. Nothing breaks my heart more than like you can tell when you're making someone uncomfortable. And it breaks my heart when I might be doing an overhead press and a deadlift, and I'm as respectful as I can. But if you're overhead pressing 400 pounds, when you put it back on the rack, it's going to make a little bit of a noise and a rattle, and and like I know, and I've seen many older people, middle-aged people, females who are training beside me choose to leave and go somewhere else because it's probably intimidating for them, and that type of stuff is really upsetting to me. So I think that's perpetuated by a very, very small minority.
I was going to say too, we have a question for you in the comments here from one of our fans. Says, Mitch, are you going for the 505 kilogram at Giants Live? So we talked about that a little bit earlier, but yes, you are going for that, correct?
Well, I'm going for the deadlift world record, but I don't think it's going to be 505. I think the whole lineup's going to pull over 1,000. I think more than one guy is probably capable of 505, myself included. I think I'm going there to hold the world record by the time that I leave. So if that happens to be 510, if that happens to be 515, I'm not closing my mind to anything, because if you could do 505, 510 is less than 1% away. So you'd have a hard time convincing me that there's not a mental element to that. So I'm in my head, I'm kind of preparing to go lift 510.
That's good to hear. I know, because when Eddie set the 500 kilo world record, it was a 20-something kilo jump that he did.
Could be wrong, but I believe it was 465 kilos before he did that.
Okay, so it was a 35 kilo jump that he did.
I believe so.
So okay, so I was gonna say if someone emulates that same jump, which I don't see being a 35 kilo jump, is massive. I could see a 5 kilo jump or something like that. 35 kilo jump would be insane, but it's not impossible, I guess, is what I would say with that.
Yeah, no, I don't think, at the moment we're still in the discovery phase of what the record is. And in the 100-meter dash, that's so well established that you improve that by 500ths of a second, and you're doing extremely well. Where for us, that's not the case. You look at the records, and all the records over the past 5 years, 10 years, they're nowhere close to the same. And you can't tell me that, the record is going up like that, and then like now it's this. It's no, like that's going to slowly taper off. So, by the time we get to the true 1 kilo increments being required, when I'm 80 years old, I don't see a reason that number is not in the 540s. So, and it's the only confounding variable is that breaking a world record has a price tag to it. So if no one else deadlifts 505 and I have the opportunity, I would be stupid to try 510 because there's a pretty big price tag on 505. So there's that element to it as well. But for them to be able to offer that is I'm extremely thankful for it.
Yeah, I did have one of my friends ask me a question, because I mentioned that you were shooting for the deadlift world record and everything, and he looked at your Instagram and he was like, oh, well, he's not really doing much over 400 recently, and I can't remember who said it, who had the quote, but they were saying, the human body has a limited number of 900 plus pound deadlifts that it has, and so you want to use those sparingly in competition. I don't remember who said that. But I was wondering, is that more of your mindset going into this, that you're training in the 300 kilo range, more for volume, getting that set up, and then when it comes time, then increasing up? Because that's kind of what I told my friend. I was like, that's probably what he's going for. Or He's just showing whatever lifts he does that day. But
yeah, I'm training for World's Strongest Man at the moment. There's no need to deadlift over 400 kilos for World's Strongest Man. And when you talk about training cycles and times of the year, you're not, as a strength athlete, you're not training 1 RMs the entire year. And I don't believe there's a finite number of reps at whatever weight. But I do believe that you lose sensitivity if you stick with the same type of training for a long time. So, yeah, I did some, well, after that deadlift record, I then had my first vacation in a couple of months. So I took a trip up the coast in New South Wales, had a beautiful trip with my fiance, did a little bit of training, pulled a accidental 420 kilo deadlift, which I'll tell you about in a second. That's a funny story. And then I haven't touched my deadlift suit since. There's no need to get into a deadlift suit if you're not close. And I just hopped back into it last week for the first time. And so, you know, if you can deadlift 505 kilos, well, for me anyway, I'll speak personally. If I can deadlift 505 kilos, I think raw, I should probably be able to deadlift 440, 445. But I don't think people appreciate that if you are training to deadlift 445, 8 weeks out, 12 weeks out from that, you're probably only deadlifting 390, and that feels like a maximum. So to walk you up to my 475, I'll always, for general preparedness purposes, I'll always pick up a raw deadlift to a reasonable number. And my raw deadlift before I jumped into the suit was about 370. My first day in my suit might have been 10 weeks out from doing the record. The first day in the suit, 400 kilos, I had to hitch, and it was tough. 410 the next week was easier. 420 the next week was easier. And so, you know, it's just it's a different motor pattern, and you know, you're even learning different things as you go. Like I was having a bit of a lull with my deadlift for the past 3-4 weeks. And then earlier this week, I realized that I was starting the bar too close to me. My shin was too vertical and I wasn't getting much quad off the ground, which really helps me. So I intentionally started the bar further away. And today, raw without straps, I did 330 kilos for a set of 5 out of a suit with no issue at all. So yeah, you just can't do it all year round because you need to use your volume to build muscle, maintain muscle. You need to use your strength blocks carefully because, as you would know with your education as well, your active tissue and your muscle adapts quicker than your passive tissue. Yeah. And that's because it has such a rich blood supply, and your passive tissue and your tendons, ligaments, and your cartilage and your joints, it doesn't have the same blood supply. So if you continue to push 1 RMs and say you're making incredible progress, well, your muscles might get 20, 30% stronger if you're a novice, but your tendons don't get 20 to 30% stronger. And if you get too big of a discrepancy between your muscles and your tendons, that's when you'll have a tendon rupture. That's why you'll see a lot of guys who go from, say, bodybuilding, and they go, okay, I'm going to do strength sports. Well, their engine is huge, but the build of their car is terrible. And so they go to do an incline press, and the pecs ripping off and biceps ripping off. And I believe we have to be careful at the rate that we progress. So I use that time I kind of think of it as soft tissue care, if you will.
I like that. That's a good definition. Good explanation.
Yeah. We can't let Mitchell go without asking this. What's your number 1 deadlift tip?
Yeah.
We'll talk in the context of high-level performance, I suppose.
Yes.
I think it all revolves around making sure that your strength curve is equal throughout the movement. And what I mean by that is you do everything you can to eliminate a sticking point. So it's impossible to have an actual individual tip that I could throw out there, and I think it would be incorrect for anyone to do that, really. But I think understanding a few errors and movement patterns and understanding why you do those is really important. So, for example, if off the floor you round your upper back, what you're subconsciously trying to do is get the distance between your shoulders and your hips to decrease. And if you can do that, then you're going to be stronger off the floor because you have more leverage at your hips. The issue with that is when you get to your knee, you somehow have to unfold your back. And so that's going to be really challenging. But then you take someone who struggles off the floor and keeps a very stiff back, and it's a reasonable thing to say, well, maybe we start to work with a little bit more thoracic flexion, help you off the floor, and you won't have an issue at your knee. And, you know, vice versa. If someone can't get past their knee, you have to be patient and stiff off the floor. I think something that helps a lot of people is pushing the knees over the bar when they're deadlifting. A lot of people think they need a vertical shin, and having a vertical shin eliminates almost everything from the anterior chain. And you're trying to deadlift with your erectors, your glutes, and your hamstrings, which if you look at a textbook, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. So it's intuitive to do that, but you know, it's a full body movement. And then I think on top of that, you have to learn proper bracing and understand what bracing is. So you know, your core is every muscle from the bottom of your ribs to your pelvis. So you got your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, and every muscle in between, really. And how to create the most pressure there and stiffness, and understanding that your lats are tied into your core, and that has a huge impact on your core stability. Huge muscle. You go, okay, right. And you activate your lats more by internally rotating your shoulders, and that helps you activate your lats. So you should actually be internally rotated, and your shoulder blades should be forward. Because if your shoulder blades are forward and you're reaching forward, you're eliminating 2-3 inches range of motion. And when you have to pull your shoulder blades back, the perpendicular distance between the bar and your shoulder blades is almost zero because you're standing up tall. So you'll never have an issue to do that. So, you know, I think I can talk to you for a long time about it. I think it's just such a simple thing that you could break down in so many ways. Personally, I believe that the deadlift is the king of who's the strongest person on the planet. And it's so primal and so rudimentary. Like, how much weight can you pick up off the ground? And it's one of the few exercises that I can explain to, say, an elderly person. And you go, well, I do a really good log press, which means that there's a log with handles and I do this, and then you kind of lose it. But you go, I can pick up 1,047 pounds from the ground to my waist. And they're like, how? But I'll tell you the story quick about the 420 kilo deadlift. This was another charity event, and I was on vacation with my fiance. I trained maybe once in the past week, which is my longest training break in about a decade. And Katie, the girl who works for me, she and her husband go to a world gym in Maitland, New South Wales. And they asked me if I'd do a deadlift seminar, and it was for charity. It was around Christmas time, so it was for stuffed animals for kids. Okay, tough to say no. So yeah, let's do it. And so I agreed that I would go and deadlift 400 kilos. And so, you know, I go and everything feels okay. And I do 350 for my first attempt, 375 for my second attempt, and 400 for my third attempt. And I pull 400, and I'd done that about a week and a half before because I'd never pulled 400 raw before. So I go, okay, let me just make sure that I can do this. So I did it on a stiff bar, and it was okay, moved fine. So I go, okay, I'm comfortable to do that as like an everyday PB sort of thing. So I go to pull this weight, and like it's just stapled to the floor. And so I'm pulling, and you know, it comes up, I get it past my knee, my head, like I'm seeing stars, my ears are ringing, and I put it down, and I kind of say thank you to everyone. And I look at the guy who was organizing the event. I go, geez, I was not prepared for that. And before I lifted it, Katie was kind of like, oh, you can do more than 400. And she's just joking with me. And her husband was the one who was organizing the event. And he announces, he goes, that's a 400 kilo deadlift. You don't see that outside of professional competition very often. Thanks so much, Mitchell, for coming, blah, blah, blah. Someone says something to him beside, and then he comes over to me. He goes, like he's literally white in the face. He goes, are you okay? I go, yeah, I'm okay. He goes, you're not hurt or anything? I go, no. He goes, I'm so sorry, that was 420. I'm like, all right, well, I guess here we are.
Wow. Yeah, for the uninitiated, how much help does the suit give you?
It depends on the person. So if you're I'll say thinner. I'll call myself a thinner strongman. If you don't have a big stomach, the suit can help huge because you you can get so tight in that suit, and it can provide so much support. Where if you're a larger person and say you have a gut, and this is why someone like say Benny Magnuson, he can do the 465 without a suit and can't really get anything out of it, because if he tightened that suit at all, he's not getting to that bar, no chance. And so for someone who's a little bit smaller and you can actually reach down, like I said, for me, if I deadlift 440 raw, I'm confident I could get 505 equipped. For reference, I did 420 raw, and that was a 475 equipped. So my discrepancy was about 55 kilos, and I'd say both were about equivalent in terms of effort level. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to turn that into a percent, that's sort of how I got to 440 raw.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's pretty awesome. It's interesting too, just because speaking of deadlift and everything. So my 1.5-year-old, I have a little 35 pound kettlebell here at the house, and my 1.5-year-old, he's actually picked it up and walked a little bit with it, kind of duck walked with it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, you're like, it's heavier than you. That's and you deadlifted it pretty much, and so you made the comment about anyone over 3 can train deadlift. I was like, realistically, if they're walking semi-stably, they could do some form of deadlift. I don't know if it's necessarily recommended, but it is possible, because even as soon as they start walking, deadlift is just what we do, where we pick something up off the floor. It's a natural human movement. And it's interesting because I worked as a physical therapy assistant for several years. Now I'm going back to finish my doctorate and everything. But I've had multiple physical therapists who have told me, don't do deadlifts with people because, it's bad for their back, or it's bad for their, blah, blah, or whatever else. And when I first started doing it, I was like, all right, maybe you're right. And then the more I started researching it, the more I started learning, I was like, no, that's completely backward. Like the deadlift, everyone should deadlift, just like everyone should squat. Everyone should reach overhead. These movements are things that we do every day, putting groceries away or whatever else. So it's just reassuring hearing that from someone else, I guess.
Yeah, strongman is like competitive everyday life. And there's not much that we do that you don't have to do in everyday life. Yeah, you hear a lot of people who claim to be professionals, but if I looked around my master's class of 30 people, I could tell you 5 lifted weights regularly. And these are people who say your parents are people who don't know exercise very well. Would go to them as the expert in resistance training. What are you talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about. And I would back someone who has no idea. And then you get Robert Oberst on Joe Rogan saying no one should do deadlifts. And he also said that the deadlift suit was used to prevent injury. My ears are bleeding. I go, what are you talking about? So this is my pledge to Joe Rogan. I need to get on his to clear some things up.
Well, we're not quite as big as Joe Rogan yet, but maybe someday this will be equivalent.
Yeah, good.
Obi says he's done after next year. I don't know if you guys heard. He said he's going to try to qualify for Worlds next year, and then that's it. He's riding off into the sunset.
Yeah, I heard that.
He's all due respect, and again, I don't know the guy. I think he has accomplished more in the sport with the History Television show and all that, in relation to his athletic accomplishments. His professional accomplishments out of the sport have been completely disproportionate, and I really respect him for that. His ability to market himself, and I don't really know how, but he's done so well. For what is his best world's finish?
He's never podiumed. He's only made the finals.
The finals once, right?
Twice, I think. Once. He hasn't made the finals very many times.
The fact that we're talking about him is like, you got to give props to the guy.
He's a good shot putter.
He's a good shot putter. But I think also kind of like you said too, like he plays that persona. He gets the attention. You know, when he's on TV, a lot of people follow him. I mean, not gonna lie, I think a big part of it is his head. His head is massive. When I got to meet him, I was like, that's the ninth planet in our, forget.
I think he's heard you say that one too many times because he's starting to say it on his channel now.
Oh, really?
He's like, look at my big head.
I was like, it's huge. He's got a big head. It's crazy.
Yeah, it looks like he had an 8th place finish and a 9th place finish in 2 World's Strongest Men finals.
Yeah, and we're talking about him. Pretty good. I couldn't tell you many other guys who finished 8th and 9th and never any better.
True.
So, you look at someone like that, and that's why I don't list winning championships or titles as something that I want to accomplish, because it's a byproduct, and what I want to accomplish is a byproduct of what that is. But if I was Robert Oberst and I had come 8th or 9th in Worlds, and I had a big audience, and I could use that audience to there you go. I could use that audience to promote my message. And holy crap, man, he has a huge head. Wow.
I mean, because I'm 6'5" and 300 pounds, and his head alone is as big as my chest almost. I was like, so I think that's partly what's gained him so much popularity.
Yeah.
It's just
that you can't miss him.
You can't miss him. Yeah.
But to wrap that thought up, I would feel more accomplished being Robert Oberst with the following that he has, being able to promote the message that I want to promote, which is to do with regular exercise and a strong sense of community, physical health and mental health. I'd feel a way bigger sense of accomplishment being him than I would be at this stage. Maybe someone like Mateusz Kielskiewski, who he's an incredible athlete, absolutely incredible athlete, but what does he stand for? What's he like? What's he don't like? I know nothing about the guy, and part of that is because he's Polish, and I'm sure in Poland people know that. But if I don't win and I have a greater impact on people and how they behave in a positive way, then I'd prefer that over winning anything.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great message. And the one guy I would say trans versus language barriers for me, and actions speak louder than words with the positive messaging, is Novikov. In 2020, I was on the bandwagon of, he pulled it because it was from a high height. And then since then, the guy's been so consistent and so even overcoming what's going on in his country right now to do so well. You can't help but be a huge fan.
100%. And he's a great example of someone who I don't really give my opinion on any strongman I haven't met, because, take all the Ukraine stuff away, which is obviously horrible. But somehow the Stoltman brothers love that guy. And it's not because they behave exactly how they behave as you see them, because you're the super gregarious and very reserved. It's unlikely that they're behaving that way to each other. So, but given the opportunity, that guy's knocked it out of the park to be able to pass on this message. Honestly, someone who I aspire to be in the world of strength sports is Arnold. The amount that guy has promoted exercise across the world and has made people healthier across the world, we probably wouldn't be talking about lifting weights if it wasn't for him. And if I could have 1% of the impact that he's had, that would be a life accomplishment.
Absolutely. Cool.
You got to grow the hair out and be the next Conan. And then
Hey Isaac, you want to address that comment from Terminator, or do we?
There you go.
Or do we want to avoid that one?
We'll talk out. We've discussed it on the channel before, so I think most people kind of know where John and I stand on Thor's home gym world record. What's your opinion of him doing it in his home gym?
I struggle to care.
Okay.
Doesn't care if that counts, if that doesn't count. If my biggest issue with it is I don't like records broken by 1 kilo. That doesn't prove to me that you're stronger. It just proves to me that you put 1 extra kilo in the bar. So who cares? He's lifted the most weight off the floor that anyone's ever lifted, and okay, but it's not that important to me. And I would say the same thing about the 505. If I pull 505, I think I'd probably be the strongest man on the planet if I did it. But I'm sure people would talk about it. But if I was out with my friends and they were making a fuss over it, I'd rather talk about something else. And the only reason that I aspire to do it is a couple of reasons. 1, you get invited to more comps. 2, they put up a whole bunch of money for it. 3, you get a whole bunch of followers to pass on whatever message you want to pass on. And I'm not going to lie and pretend it's something else. That I don't have a story like Eddie Hall where I was a child and my life's dream was to be world's strongest man. It's not. My dream has always been to leave the world a better place, and I found it, and give back more to the world than was given to me. And unfortunately or fortunately, my parents have carved out a very difficult time for me to give back more than is given to me. So I have a lot of work to do.
Interesting. Well, I'll say from a fan's perspective, if you hit 505, it won't be considered petty like beating it by 1 kilo. Like 4 kilos is substantially more.
Sure.
Well, great. Well, we've hit the 1.5 hour mark, so we should probably start wrapping this up. I know John wants to go to bed. It's late. It's past his bedtime. He's
yeah, I'm so old. So.
but yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And before you go, do you have any sponsors or anything you want to shout out? I know you mentioned you have your business and everything. Want to just let people know how to get a hold of you, how to follow you, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Mitchell Hooper. My TikTok's Mitchell Hooper Strongman. I love the interaction on there, and that's the best place to get in touch with me. My business in Barrie, exercise physiology clinic, is called Longevity Nexum. It's just down Waterfront View, and my coaching business online is Moose Strength Team. And, anyone who wants to be a part of that, shoot me a message. We'll hop on the phone, and if you're fit, now you know what the criteria is, and you're what I'm looking for. So
don't be a jerk.
Yeah, and you want to be a part of that, then you're more than welcome.
Nice.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and definitely we'll be rooting for you to get an invite or something to Worlds somehow. Hopefully, I never hope anyone gets hurt so a spot opens up or anything like that, but hopefully something works out for you. And then definitely at Giants, we'll be watching you very closely. It sounds like Laws will be watching you very closely as well. So
yeah, I want to go to dinner with Laws. I don't know if Laws watches this, but I think the most generous gift someone could give is some of their time, and to sit down with dinner with him and Liz, and I'll pay the tab, but I just want to.
We're
buddies. We talk. I'll tell him.
Good. Tell him.
We'll shoot him a message or something and let him know you're interested.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, last thing I was wondering. I mean, you can say if you're not allowed to say, but you mentioned Worlds a few times. Are you an official alternate, or you can't say?
It's honestly, I've been asked not to say exactly that. But
no, that's fine. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
Well, I just did, but I don't know why. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what the secrets are. I don't know why they don't follow in the events. I don't know why. There's a lot of confusion in that whole world, and I'm not that shy about saying that. I think, to be honest, from the little bit that I know that Colin is the tournament director for Worlds, but it's done by IMG, who's like a management company who also does like Miss America and all that stuff. So I don't think they care too much about World's Strongest Man. I think that's just another thing that they do. And to be fair to them, I suppose if you're running Miss America, you don't really need to tell the girls what they're doing because they all know. But We don't know. In fact, I still haven't been given the events list. I only know the events list through other people that I know. And I'm supposed to be potentially ready. So
Yeah.
It is
Well,
what it is. I'm really happy to have a chance to go to Sacramento and to be amongst those guys. And I mean, it's a great way for exposure. And exposure creates leverage, and leverage creates leverage for whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. But any final questions or anything, John, before we let Mitch go? No,
thanks for being so open and honest and spreading a positive message.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I hope to continue to do that. And I'll just say my sponsor, Cerberus and Boss Supplements in Barrie. It's very difficult to get through in this sport without them. And for me personally, anyone you see myself associated with are people who have the same values as myself. So that's very important to me. And if you go support those guys, you support the same message that I preach.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And it was fantastic chatting with you. And just for everyone who's still watching this, have a wonderful weekend. And I was almost going to say go out and be great. I guess I watched Brian's video before, but I can't plagiarize his.
How about you go with like, comment, and subscribe?
There you go. Like, comment, and subscribe, and go and follow Mitch. All right. Have a good one.